All right, welcome back in here to Live Now from Fox. I am Andy Mack. In just the matter of several days on the campus of Villanova University there in Philadelphia, a pair of false active shooter events taking place. Again, this one happened on Sunday after an incident, a cruel hoax on Thursday from the Radnor police saying police department on location at Villanova University, Austin Hall for a reported shooter there. Of course, we are hearing different updates from authorities here on Live Now from Fox as law enforcement confirmed the call to be false. Officers are working to clear the campus and restore normal operations at this time. The investigation is ongoing. And we heard there again from the Villanova University president, Father Peter Donahue, calling today's another hoax. This was the statement on social media sent out to the Villanova community saying, "You likely have many questions right now as you received another flurry of Nova alerts about another possible incident on campus. First and foremost, the campus is and has been safe despite the troubling events of the past several days." So obviously concern there on the campus as they are beginning yet another fall session. Let's be joined right now by Villanova student, junior in communication, Dylan Johnson. Dylan, thank you so much for joining us here on Live Now from Fox. And you've been on social media kind of documenting all of this. You got back on campus today. What's the feeling so far?
Yeah, I mean, fortunately, I've been able to talk to a lot of students, who were here over the past few days too, orientation counselors, some freshmen. Obviously, it's calmed down a lot until today. It was another scare that happened today on campus earlier today. But it seems like there's a lot of calmness. I think a lot of people calmed down. I haven't got to talk to people like recently in the last few hours. So obviously things could have changed. But a lot of people, have never experienced this. I've talked to some security officers here. They haven't seen they've been here for 18 years. They haven't seen something like this. So it's all new to Villanova and the surrounding community. A lot of police presence here today, security on the final day of move-in for upperclassmen. So it's calm. People feel safe. There's a lot of security right now, and it feels like it's going well despite, the recent events.
And you mentioned some of these comments from the president, Dr. Peter Donahue there, talking about some of what was going on here. How reassuring are those words, and how is Villanova taking care of you guys, knowing that a school year is coming up? It's stressful enough as you guys are in college. Are they standing up and helping you guys?
Yeah, I feel like Villanova, as of late, obviously they, like us, we haven't experienced something like this. I've been here for 2 years. Some people have been here for decades. And so it's all new to the administration too. But I feel like there's been a very good response with what's happened. And in terms of the emails and stuff, Father Peter, our President Donahue, has done a great job at kind of telling the parents, telling the community too, not just the students, how they feel about this incident, how they're going to respond to this, keeping us in the loop. I feel like they've done a good job with offering counseling for students who are affected mentally and, disturbed by the events that happened. Unfortunately, a lot of them were freshmen. They've never stepped foot on Villanova's campus. And the first day that they're here, they get hit with something that we haven't experienced and they don't know where to go. So I feel like they've done a good job at keeping freshmen up to date, giving them opportunities to have counseling and stuff like that. It's been going well, and it's been a fast adjustment and a quick response from the administration here at Villanova.
Yeah, and the Villanova community as a whole is very small, very tight-knit. Can you describe some of these locations? Because the one on Thursday happened at Charles Wigner School of Law. Today, that was an incident at Austin Hall. Are these two locations far apart at all?
In terms of Villanova, obviously, when you look at, bigger universities, I would say that they're far apart for Villanova. Villanova is obviously a small campus here on the main line outside of Philadelphia. So in terms of some universities, if you look at it, like if you compared it to a Penn State, they would be close together. But in terms of size, and if you're comparing it to just Villanova, they are pretty far apart. The law school is on our west side of campus, and in between our west side of campus and main campus, we have a SEPTA train station that services the Paoli-Thorndale line. So that's 4 train tracks of distance, plus a parking lot that is in between these two buildings that were the incidents occurred, law school on Thursday and Austin Hall today. So there's a decent amount of distance. Obviously, if viewers out there saw the shots from Thursday where they saw the videos, that was outside of Austin Hall, my former dorm room last year. So I kind of hit close to home seeing, another alert sent out today, but they are pretty far apart, so they weren't too close together when you compare it to Villanova's size of campus.
And just for our national audience, because you mentioned kind of Penn State, a very large institution, Villanova, kind of a little bit smaller, but obviously very prestigious. Can you talk about, do students live on campus at Villanova? Do they live off campus? Do they commute? What's the kind of trend for normal Villanova students?
Yeah, Villanova is a huge community in the sense that it's a lot of on-campus students. I think over 80%, I don't know the exact percentage, but over 80% of Villanova's undergraduate students are here on campus. Freshman year, you're required to, and then you can later apply to, stay off campus. And then you're guaranteed housing all the way up through your junior year. And then senior year, you have to enter a lottery. So a lot of students kind of are heavily based on campus for 3 years, freshman through junior year until they either stay on campus for their senior year because they get picked in the lottery, or then they have to find off-campus housing. But most of that off-campus housing is close anyway. So a lot of people are always, in the same kind of tight-knit community. It's a very tight community here at Villanova.
And you mentioned that train line, so it's not very hard to access campus, even if you are necessarily off of campus. I know you're just getting back there into kind of the school mode, the study mode, but do you think students, you have spoken with anyone that's apprehensive about coming back?
I mean, a lot of people, I guess I guess they're kind of alert. I would feel like that's a good word to use. They're alert. They're kind of more aware, especially since hasn't happened to some of Villanova students ever. So a lot of people are kind of worried about what's going to happen. But I feel like Villanova has done a great job at making this place feel safe. They made it, it's felt safe before it happened, and it still feels safe even being here just for one day today on Sunday. But a lot of students are ready to get back tomorrow. Tomorrow morning, 8:30 is the first day, first class of the, this upcoming school year. So far, I haven't heard anybody worried to come back, but I know there's possibility that a lot of people are on higher alert than normal. But a lot of security, a lot of campus security patrolling today, so it feels safe.
You mentioned tomorrow, the start really of classes in full. What can that moment be like? Are you going to do anything extra to prepare?
I'm up early tomorrow morning at 8:30 for my first class of the semester. So preparing, getting some good sleep, but I feel safe. I feel like, going about your normal life, going about your normal education is the best way to kind of approach these things. Until anything else, changes. I feel like the best way is just to keep on keeping on and, keep that spirit up and enjoy the school year, while we still can and while we're still young.
You mentioned that this was orientation on Thursday when this first cruel hoax came down, and some parents there moving some of their kids in. What are your parents' thoughts? Have you spoken to them about this?
I did. I've spoken to them a lot. Fortunately, I was with them at home when this happened on Thursday. Moved in today, obviously, so we came up today to move my stuff in. But talking over the last few days, I wasn't on campus, so my parents fortunately were happy to know that I was safe at home when this all happened. But they're worried too. They're not worried just about me, but they're worried about the whole entire Villanova community. I have friends here that I went to high school with. Everyone kind of knows each other. I feel like the best way to describe Villanova is it's a high school feel. Everyone kind of knows each other. You know everyone's face, even if you don't know their name. So a lot of people are looking out for each other. Even if you don't know somebody's name, you're always worrying about them here at Villanova. So that's kind of how my parents feel. I'm sure other parents feel the same way when it comes to the Villanova community.
All right, very good, Dylan. We hope this trend does not continue. Be safe there on campus, study hard, do all the right things. But we appreciate your time here on this Sunday. Thanks again.
No problem. I appreciate it, Andy.
Thank you so much. All right, we appreciate that conversation as they're heading back to class after the second false report of an active shooter there on that campus in Villanova in Philadelphia. Live picture right now at this city, the city of brotherly love. Let's take you back out to this report, though, from our Fox 29 team on Thursday after this initial incident of that active shooter they called a cruel hoax. Let's listen into this here on Live Now.
Tonight, we have a more detailed look at exactly what happened and when here on campus and around the area as a search for whoever pulled this terrifying stunt intensifies. It's calm around the Villanova campus tonight, a far different feeling than yesterday's chaos and fear before reports of an active shooter were found to be a hoax. Today, Delaware County officials said in a statement what happened and when. First saying, quote, emergency services received a call at 4:33 p.m. of shots fired from a man armed with an AR-15 style weapon on campus, reports which later turned out to be erroneous. Then, quote, multiple calls were received in which gunshot-like sounds were heard in the background, and a call about a gunshot wound. Officials say then, quote, law enforcement agencies were dispatched from nearly every municipality in the region. An emergency operations center was established and 18 EMS units were dispatched in the event of injuries. All of this happened while an outdoor mass for new students and their families was going on. It led to a shelter in place which had people running to hide. Some barricaded in buildings, others ran off campus. Police spent more than an hour searching campus and the surrounding neighborhood. Ultimately, officials deemed it a hoax, calling it a possible case of swatting. They lifted the lockdown just after 6:30.
They were dedicated on collecting data, confirming the evidence and interviews that we had, and working with the FBI, Delaware County District Attorney's Office, and the Pennsylvania State Police to follow up on our leads and investigate the crime itself. This is a crime. I don't want anybody, this isn't funny, this isn't lighthearted, this is big-time criminal activity with felony charges pending.
In Villanova, Shawnette Wilson, Fox 29 News.
All right, thank you so much for that. And that was on Thursday, that cruel hoax of an active shooter reported on the campus. And this was during orientation. For some students, the first time they had ever stepped onto the campus, as they were concerned about this alert. And then again, happening earlier on today, another false incident, a false report of a active shooter. Let's take you again, though, back out to some more comments from different authorities, officials on the ground on Thursday of what they witnessed, what they were thinking about then.
I'm not going to get into that right now because this is an active investigation, but somebody did make a call. We are working right now, my forensics team, as well as the FBI. And Andy, I don't know if you want to speak for a moment here, but Lower Merion, thank God you guys were here on scene as well. First thing, but we are going to make sure we do use every tool in the toolbox to trace these calls. Again, we're still making sure, Andy, I'm thinking about this, making sure that every building is secure at this point while we're dismissing people one by one. But if this is true that it was a hoax, we're going to take every investigative step possible.
Right, that's correct. At this point, we still have emergency response teams going through the building systematically, room by room, checking, and there are some people that were sheltering in place, following the procedure, and they're bringing them out and making sure they're all right. EMS is checking them as well. So it's a lengthy process. It's going to take some time, but we're very thankful that we had a great police response, as you heard. We worked together collectively to make sure everybody's safe.
How many officers? How many officers from how many jurisdictions?
I can't even begin to tell you. As I was walking up here, I saw police cars from Chester County, Western Chester County, Montgomery County. Everybody in Delaware County is here. Chief Spillane from Nether Providence came running. I mean, everybody comes whenever we have a crisis. This is how law enforcement works. This is why they're so great in this region. These are some of the best police officers you'll ever meet. And what they did here today was truly heroic. And I am thankful, that none of them got hurt, because these officers came from all over this area thinking that they were going to go into an active shooter room, into a building, and have to take somebody down to save someone's life. Somebody in law enforcement could have gotten hurt. That's why this is such a serious matter for us. I want to reiterate what Dave said. The Villanova community was fantastic. Everybody took seriously the alert. Everybody locked down. They are now being released. They're finally going to get a chance to breathe again. But this was a serious crisis, and I'm so thankful that we have these leaders behind me who made sure that this event was made safe today. Not going to get
just listening in there to authorities on the ground talking about this, really a sigh of relief, an exhale of sorts on Thursday after this cruel hoax was found out to be that way. He commended some of the police there on the ground. And then just days later, Radnor police also responding to another call of an active shooter, as law enforcement confirmed the call, though, to be false. Officers were working to clear the campus, restore normal operations. And we heard from the Villanova University president there, Father Reverend Peter Donahue, saying you likely have many questions right now as you received another flurry of Nova alerts about another possible incident on campus. First and foremost, the campus is and has been safe despite the troubling events of the past few days. He goes on to say, I pray that we can come together as a community, strengthened by our care and concern for one another, and overcome the distress and frustration these incidents have caused. So let's continue on here on Live Now from Fox and bring in Associate Professor at Atlanta's John Marshall Law School, Elizabeth Jaffe. Thank you so much for joining us here on Live Now from Fox. And both of these active shooter calls at Villanova were confirmed to be false. Obviously, lots of conversation right now about swatting and what it is. Can you give us a definition, and do these most recent incidents fit that definition?
Yes, well, for a basic definition, swatting is where a person makes a fake urgent report to emergency services of some kind of either a bomb threat or an active shooter or some other kind of violent crime. And it tricks law enforcement into dispatching the SWAT team originally, which is where the term comes from, or some kind of other emergency response.
Yeah, and obviously that kind of fits what we saw at Villanova, and you see the amount of force and the different law enforcement personnel, the different agencies there that were on the ground. When a law enforcement officer, when law enforcement gets a 911 call or however this call gets dispatched, their response has to be that they believe it, correct?
Yes, absolutely. But they have to respond, Andy, or we could end up with situations like we had here in Atlanta recently. So they have to respond, and time is of the essence. And there's no time to waste. When they get the call, they've got to respond to it because everyone's safety is at risk.
Yeah, and they said also law enforcement safety potentially at risk just with the amount of force there on that side. And everyone's asking about this. Not only how do calls like this get such credibility, but are there consequences out there for people that make swatting calls?
Oh, yes, absolutely. You've got anti-swatting laws in a number of states, including California, Georgia, Maryland, Michigan, Missouri, New Jersey, Ohio, Texas, Virginia, Wisconsin. And there are certainly enormous consequences that go with it, including second and third degree felony, depending on the level of what the harm that results.
And I want to ask you, you talk about some of those potential felonies for this, but with technology the way it is, everyone obviously has a cell phone and whatnot. How difficult does it make it for law enforcement to catch a perpetrator in an incident that's involving swatting?
Well, I mean, it is somewhat difficult, which I think they were mentioning earlier in the segment that was on just before we started talking about that they've got to do an investigation and trace it and try to figure it out. So while we've got very advanced abilities to trace and track, it still takes time to do that. And now you've got with the internet, of course, you've got ways of, spoofing phone numbers and they can run them in circles sometimes before they get to the perpetrator who committed the crime.
And we're talking about this in some of this video from Thursday there at Villanova. And this happened twice in 4 days on the same campus. And that just speaks to the increase in swatting. Can you tell me more about that? How much increase has there been in swatting? Is it something that has become very prevalent?
I think so. I mean, we first started hearing about swatting. It was probably in the early 2000s, and it came about in the gaming industry is actually where it all started. And you had the gamers who were calling in the swatting calls as part of games like Call of Duty and things like that. And I believe I started doing my research on it. It was probably around 2016, 27. And then in 2017, you had the incident with Andrew Finch where the swatting call was made and it ended up in the death of an innocent individual.
Yeah, that is so very unfortunate. Are there any correlations you see with swatting by the people that make those calls, by why they're doing it, any motivation behind it?
Well, I'm not a psychologist, but I think that the sort of general understanding is the same way that when we were younger and you'd make a prank call, there was some kind of excitement that came with making the prank call. It's just that the consequences have turned deadly, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, that is so very true. And we just spoke with a student there on the campus in Villanova about how the school is reaching out to them about the different mental disturbances that they might be going through. But when a swatting incident happens, the police, they come in, they figure out that it's a false report, and then they leave. Is there more that police can do to be transparent about that? Because obviously the community there kind of traumatized by just the show of force. Is there more the police can do on that end?
Well, I think that the police have to do their job. And so they have to go in full force and do what's necessary to secure the situation. And unfortunately, I believe it was freshmen that had just gotten to campus. So they were young students just start. I think there was some kind of orientation type thing that was going on, if I'm not mistaken. So just the sheer fear of those students who'd never been to college before. These are kids that were just in high school that are now in college and being told there's an active shooter situation and you need to barricade yourself in your dorm room or wherever you are.
And can we talk about that? Because you mentioned some of those students being on campus. How are schools, how are universities preparing for incidents like this of obviously unfortunate swatting calls being made? And you can imagine the concern. You're on a campus that you're unfamiliar with. You're away from family, away from your parents you've relied on your whole life. How are schools, I should say, preparing for moments like this?
While I'm not a school administrator, I would think that the schools, unfortunately, have to be aware and preparing for these types of incidents, just like we have the schools, elementary and middle and high schools preparing for active shooter situations now.
That is very good. I want to ask you, because obviously the laws on the books change over time. Do you think they will become more severe for people that do some of these swatting calls?
Absolutely. And I also think the publicity because of the sheer amount of them that we're seeing, I think the latest statistic we had was something to the effect of 1,000 incidents in a year that we knew about. And I believe in 2019, the FBI began a system by where they were tracking and the swatting calls. So we do have some figures on that kind of information. But I would think that it's fairly prevalent, and the more that gets out about it, hopefully the more of a deterrent it becomes.
Yeah, that is very true. Obviously, the punishment needs to be severe enough to eliminate these calls of swatting. Elizabeth, anything else that you'd like to add? It's obviously a very disturbing kind of trend going around. Anything else on your mind? Any notes you want to share?
Absolutely, Andy. I just think that people need to be aware of the prevalence of it. And we've got a number of situations that have occurred, not just the 2 times on Villanova, but then we had it at University of Tennessee in Chattanooga. And so I think we're going to see more of these incidents, and it's absolutely critical that we take steps to prosecute those who commit them.
Yeah, that is a very good point. The UT Chattanooga one happening early on Thursday, and then the Villanova one somewhat overshadowing, but still a very disturbing, unfortunate trend. Elizabeth, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. Thanks so much for joining us here on Live Now.
You're welcome. Bye, Andy.
All right, thank you so much.